I've had someone throw up on me before from nerves. So people thinking that I knew what I was doing was a challenge, or at least it still feels like a challenge. I think even now I've coached Erin to a pretty high level, and I don't have a queue of other athletes at the door that are like, oh, I have to work with you because you coach so well. Always feels like I've kind of been brushed off as not being that involved. Somebody questioned the fact that there was all male coaches going to it, and the response that they got is there's no female coaches functioning at the level. But when we're trying to do trainings and stuff, we'll always make sure that there's at least one day of a training where it's just brutal and people get shut down.
Welcome to another episode of the That's Not Real Climbing podcast. I'm your host, Jenny, and I'm excited to introduce my guest for today, Rachel Carr. Rachel is a Team GB coach and also Erin McNeice's personal coach. She started as an athlete and competed in Youth Worlds, but moved down the coaching path shortly after. In this episode, we'll talk about performance anxiety as an athlete, the difficulties she faced being taken seriously as a young female coach, and we'll get insight into Team GB's training as well as Erin's insanely huge team of coaches. I hope you enjoy this episode with Rachel. Please pardon this brief intermission, but I'm excited to talk about Mad Rock's newest and softest shoe yet, the Remora Pro. If you like being able to feel the chips you're standing on, and you like not having to worry about standing on sketchy volumes and competitions, then this is the soft shoe for you. They also have a crazy 3D heel that allows you to get more surface area when heel hooking, and inserts that lock your heel into the shoe no matter how hard you're pulling. Feel free to message me if you have any questions about the shoes or sizing, and you can use the discount code NotRealClimber for 10% off your entire Mad Rock order. Thank you to Mad Rock for helping to sponsor the podcast. Now back to the show. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good. Had a kind of busy day, but managed to just get a climb in just now, so feeling pretty chilled.
You don't get much time to climb for yourself?
Like this time of year we get a fair bit, I guess, because the athletes are at the wall, so if I'm training the athletes sometimes I can stay afterwards, but it's such a busy period just now. I'm going away next week and we've got British Boulder Champs this weekend, so I'm not going to get to climb Saturday or Sunday. So it's my last day because I'm super busy tomorrow, so sometimes it's really inconsistent, but sometimes we actually have loads of time. It's just getting the consistency across multiple weeks is the challenge.
Yeah, and that's kind of the important part of making improvements with climbing. Do you have to prepare anything for the British Bouldering Champs?
No, we have a events team, which is Zoe, who I think you've actually done an episode with. So she, because it's a BMC run event, it's the national champs, selection's only a small part of it, so she kind of organizes all of that, and then my part is I just show up and I coach on the day. But it's kind of even my role there is just in case anybody needs me, or helping run the day a little bit, because I don't actually have really any athletes that need me anymore. They either all work with other people as well, so they can get coached by them, or they don't need my help really.
Okay, so that'll be kind of chill, just a fun event for you to watch.
I mean, it's a long day. It's 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. on Saturday, I think. So a lot of time in a bouldering wall, because we'll have to stay to help it with everything and be there from the start right up until it's finished. So it'll probably be quite tiring, but I might be doing very little the whole time.
You mentioned that you don't have too many athletes that you're coaching for it anymore?
Yeah, it's kind of the way that this setup works. Because I'm full-time with GB, I basically only coach GB athletes. I have one or two that I'll write training plans for, or I used to do some sessions with, but I'm so busy now that I don't have time to do sessions with them because I'm so involved in the GB side of things. So I coach a couple of people that are in the program, in receipt of funding, but a lot of them have other coaches, so they don't actually need my help, or they just don't want it for whatever reason. They work with other people because there's Liam that's there as well. So I mainly just coach Erin, and then I do some sessions with Emma Edwards, and then I do team trainings with people, but in terms of on a weekly basis, it's pretty limited. I do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff as part of my time.
Okay, so I guess for those who don't know your backstory super well, how did you get into climbing and then competing and then coaching?
So I was a gymnast first. I did gymnastics from a young age, but my mum's friend was really into adventure sports. She did like paragliding and stuff, and she took me climbing. I think it was either for the first time or the second time because I'd done one of those like temporary walls that they had in like car parks. I don't know if you've ever done it. But yeah,
Wait, did you say paragliding?
yeah, she was really into all of that extreme sportsy stuff.
Yeah.
And
Scary.
climbing was the thing that she introduced me to. I never got to do paragliding. Maybe I would have gotten to that. But yeah, she took me climbing, and because of gymnastics, I was quite good at it straight away. So got really psyched on it and was like, oh, I want to do this. This is way more fun. It's way less like rigid. You don't have to be absolutely perfect. You can just do it your way. So then I basically ditched gymnastics pretty quick. And I think it was like within the first year, maybe I was like British champ, or like shortly after having climbed for a year.
Wow.
Because there wasn't that many people competing at the time. And then was on the team like a year and a half after starting, and competed until I was 19 on the youth circuit. I competed in lead, boulder and speed technically, but not to any successful level in any of them. Definitely not in speed.
Why did you decide to stop competing? And how did you know it was time for you to move on to something else?
I guess I was kind of lucky in that I wasn't good enough to transition to senior. So it was kind of decided for me, but I didn't realize that I hadn't made the senior team, and I had the conversation with the coach, like, oh, I don't think I'm going to keep competing, because I just had loads of performance anxiety, and it wasn't really understood at that time. Nobody turned around and said it was performance anxiety. It was only years later that I was like, oh, that's why I felt so miserable all the time. Like, I felt like I was always underperforming in competitions, which I think a lot of athletes do, but I was like, the anxiety that I feel now felt very similar to what I was feeling every day at competition. And when I was on the mats, I was just constantly like in my own head and thinking so many negative things. I couldn't just get past it and like try hard with the boulders. And it got to the point where I would finish a round and I wouldn't want to look at the results, because I'd be like, oh, I actually think I climbed quite well there. I'm really happy with that. And then somebody else would come up and be like, oh, congrats, you finished here. And then I would just like spiral, even though it would be a pretty okay result, nothing terrible. I would just like completely spiral and feel horrible afterwards. And I was like, I don't think this is worth it anymore.
Interesting. I'd actually never heard that perspective before of like, yeah, what performance anxiety feels like. Now as a coach, if you're thinking back about like what you would tell yourself at that time, is there anything you would have said to like help make it feel better?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what's helped me in my coaching. I can actually empathize a lot more with most athletes, because I think a lot of athletes do experience performance anxiety. It's so rare that people actually don't ever have any of this at all, because of course you're putting yourself out there, you're like on a stage, you have to perform consistently. Your results do matter because you are competing, but it's how they matter and what they mean to you. And I think the things that I would look back on now, and I just wish that somebody had said, here's where you really are, like here's where you actually compare and how you should do. Because I always had this idea in my head of like being on the British team, we were like a really small team, we weren't expected to do really well. And then I would go out on the mats thinking, oh, if I can just do one boulder, like that's quite good. But then other people would obviously do a lot more boulders, or it would be very varied, and like one or two athletes would perform really well, but the rest of us would be like kind of in the midfield. And it was this like battle in my head of, we're a small nation, there's a few like outliers talented, but generally we're not that good. Whereas if somebody had actually said to me like, no, you're actually really good, like we've picked you to go to these competitions because we think you can make a final and make a podium, so you have to aim for that, then I might have actually gone out and believed that I could do that. Whereas I don't remember at any point thinking I can definitely make a final. I remember being disappointed when I didn't, but never actually believing that I could be in a final or be on a podium.
Well, maybe this is like my bad mentality, but sometimes I'm just like, okay, I should just be like realistic, and maybe I'm like not really that good and it's fine. And that would like help me mentally.
I mean, I was definitely the same. I was like, if I expect the worst and it goes well, amazing. And if it goes bad, I expected it, so I'm not going to be disappointed, right? I was always disappointed. It didn't matter. I was, if anything, more disappointed, because it was like I was trying to trick myself into not expecting it. And then just like in the back of my head, I'd be like, oh, but today's probably going to be the day where like I'll win, right? No, never. Because I was never thinking that I could do it. There was never that like outlying belief. It was hope. It wasn't like determination that actually was pushing me to try harder. As much as I felt like I was trying really hard, like if I didn't have the belief behind it, how hard can I really be trying?
Mm.
So you have to like, yes, there's some like there's some reality in it, and it's the same with athletes now. If I don't think that an athlete can at least get close to a final, I'm not going to sit there and be like, you're going to definitely make this final. I'll have like a pretty constructive conversation with them about like what they should be aiming for and what they're capable of, what they need to do to get there as well. It's not just you can do it or you can't do it. But I'll quite often try and say it to other people, and like it might have been helpful to me if somebody was saying like, you struggle in these ones, okay, so just focus on this one thing, and if you can do that, then you can get this, and then we'll get this one out of the way, and you probably need to do X, Y, Z, and that might get you this, and if you can't do that, that's okay, we can go away and we can work on this and bring it back. And it's more constructive, it's more like tactical in the approach, which I could have had that from coaches. It just didn't, it was never said in a way that stuck with me. So I was always just like, oh, I'm talented, but not good enough. And I can do some boulders, but I just can't do these ones. And it was little things like when I would approach a downhill, I'd be looking at the mat rather than looking at the hold, because I was like already thinking I wasn't going to do it. Like, I don't know what I needed to be told in that moment, but I wasn't being told it because I couldn't do it. So,
Okay, now that's an interesting perspective, because I have like a coach that I like sometimes work with, and he'll say things about like what I could do, and I'm like, I think you're lying to me. I don't feel like I could do that, and I think you're just trying to say things so that I feel like I can do it when you know I can't do it.
mhm.
So it's interesting to hear you say that you wouldn't lie to an athlete about what they could do, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also quite optimistic as well. So if I would never lie to them, but I know the coaches might be like, well, they've got no chance of doing that. So I'll just not say it. But I don't think any coach would be like, you can't make a semi-final World Cup. I think they would just say, just keep trying, maybe next time, like keep going. Whereas I'm always the optimistic one in our team, where if we're predicting results for next year, I'll be like, oh yeah, I think this athlete can make a final consistently, easily. Yeah, they've done this year. They'll definitely do it next year. And people are like, are you sure? But like so far, touch wood, I've been fairly right.
Interesting.
And like I'm a firm believer that if you don't actively like be positive to people, then it's really hard for them to be positive to themselves.
Mhm.
Like in the UK especially, everybody's a bit too real all the time. They're a bit too negative. Nobody wants to like run away with themselves and get excited and just be really like happy about everything, because they're like, oh, it's not that happy, calm down. So I try and just say like a nice thing, like a compliment, or like pull out all the positive stuff. Some people have like said that I'm like toxically positive before because I'm not realistic. I don't call stuff out, but then it's equally, if you were to ask Erin, for example, like she's joked about the fact that I'm just mean. So it's
Okay.
like, it depends on the context. I'll try and, if they've had a bad performance, really draw on the positives, because there's always positives to draw on it. But then if there needs to be a harsh conversation, I'll have that harsh conversation at the same time. So it's like, I try to get that balance so that they know if I'm saying something, I do genuinely believe that that can be a possibility. Like if Erin's there like, oh, I can't possibly do this boulder, and I don't think she can, I'm like, okay, well, let's focus on how we get you as far up as possible. That's not saying you're going to do the boulder, but maybe if you work on it, you might break it down. Whereas if she can do it, I'll be like, are you joking? Obviously that one's easy for you. Like just go and get on with it, which is like maybe a bit mean to say it like that. But it's like positive. So it's really, it's hard to read a lot of the time, but it's hopefully genuine a lot.
Okay, good to know. So yeah, we got derailed a bit, but after you stopped competing yourself, how did you get into the coaching side?
So I had kind of mentored younger athletes when I was still competing. So I think when I was 16, there was like a local charity club that would go climbing, and my mum was basically like, come and help out, come and do some coaching or mentoring of the younger athletes. So I started it in that sense, and then was made like team captain on my last year in the boulder team, which was basically like one of the older kids looking after the younger kids. But in that, I kind of was coaching. Like I would say it was definitely coaching now, based on what I remember doing feedback wise. And I remember some of the younger athletes were like crying, and I was comforting them. I'd be like, go on, try the boulder again. And that to me is coaching. And it just kind of like carried on that way. I started working with a couple of younger athletes and coaching them at like local competitions. And then in like 2017, I think I'd been out of the team for like a year and a half. I got asked to come in, I guess it was chaperoning Youth Worlds. But I was I felt like I was doing the role that I'm doing now in that sense. I was kind of coming back as a coach and got loads of really good feedback from the athletes where they were like, oh, that was great. Can we get her back again? And then got various roles that pushed me up from like youth team coach for like Scotland to then British team to then where I am now, basically.
And do you also coach like the speed team, or is that a totally different person?
We kind of don't have a speed team coach.
Oh.
I definitely don't coach them. I have supported them at competitions. I would never try and claim that I have coached them because they've got as far as they have on their own. There's some really impressive like what they do. But I have supported them at competitions, and I technically did coach a speed team, like a local speed team when I was like 19. But I'm definitely not a speed coach. I don't know how to do that. It's very different.
Yeah.
Out of my skill set.
One of the Instagram questions that had also come through kind of related to this from Lucky Penguin 3. What's the difference between coaching the youth team versus the senior team?
Well, coaching the youth team is kind of early development stages. So you have a lot of athletes, a lot of different ages, but also a lot of different stages and where they are at. So some of them might be really self-sufficient in a lot of ways already and have a really good understanding of what they need to do to perform. And you can kind of just leave them to it, be there if they need you. But a lot of the time, you're getting athletes that don't know how to warm up, don't know how to fuel for the session, don't know how to read boulders, are stressed a lot. There's a lot more tears in youth. I've had someone throw up on me before from nerves. So
Wait, oh my God.
yeah.
Was this like during a competition or?
Yeah, I feel for her because she got really stressed, and I wasn't like 100% believing her, so it's my fault because I was like, no, you're fine, you're gonna just go, it'll be all right. Oh, you've thrown up on me. Oh, not on me, but like very close to me, and I had to clean it up like mid competition. And then she went out and she like did really well on the route and came back and was like, okay, I feel better now. I was like, how did you do that? That was insane.
Interesting.
It only happened once though, but like there's obviously a lot of stress, and it's exactly what I remember from competing. So again, I have a lot of empathy for them. I have a lot of time for them. I'll sit with them while they cry, but sometimes it's like a harsh word, sometimes it's just supportive. So you're doing a lot of like emotional management, but also kind of like herding cats in that you have to just check that everybody's like actually started warming up at the right time, that they know what boulders are on, that they have actually paid attention to like what sequence they're going to do for like the European format, because it's that like flash format rather than on site. And it's a lot of like also hanging out with them, entertaining them. You have to take them around for like 5 days. So I found youth comps exhausting, like super, super tiring. But it's obviously good training. And then when you get to seniors, in theory, they've already had all that support and that learning. So they should come to us and know their warm up a bit better. But obviously there's always things where you have to be like, oh, I think you should add this to your warm up, or stop doing this, or maybe you should do this. Or we're just like setting boulders for them, or sometimes it's just reminding them what time it is. There's one athlete that my only job for them is to tell them what time it is constantly, and just check where they're at, give them updates, bring good vibes, play cards, whatever. It's very like they are very much more autonomous with it, and we're adapting to the athlete needs. Whereas like the youth team, you kind of have to be really proactive and assume that they don't know anything so that you can come in and just check that they do actually know things.
Yeah, and actually, I'm now realizing it seems like actually a lot more work to do youth than senior.
Yeah. I remember my first World Cup, like I was obviously very scared because I was out front doing like the appeals and the filming on my own. So I was like, okay, if I mess this up, there's no one else here to help me. And at the end of the day, they were like, oh, how was your first senior? I was like, oh, so much easier than a youth comp. This is so chilled. And they were like, what? Really? I was like, yeah, God, I don't have to like, nobody's cried. It's great.
True. Yeah, so I guess like the appeals process didn't stress you out. I know some coaches are like very intense about like their athletes and putting in appeals. Do you feel like that's your vibe or no?
I flip between, like I find it like it's quite fun. I think because I competed myself and I'd never really left competitions, my understanding of the rules was pretty in depth anyway. I didn't really have to go through and like study the rules and memorize the numbers or anything. I kind of just instinctively knew what was a rule and what wasn't. And like I remember in the first comp that somebody topped and they didn't top properly, or they topped out of the time or something, and I straight away just with total confidence wrote the appeal and handed it in and was like, yeah, great, fine, no questions. Like wasn't stressed, and I was pretty comfortable that I could go up, and I kind of had a card to play if I was a young coach. So I would just go, oh, can I just check what this is? I'm just not really sure. And I wasn't, so it was accurate. But then it would be a case of like, oh, no, let me check it, or let me do this, and then I'll have to put an actual appeal in or something. So it can be like a tactful game, but generally it's viewed from my perspective anyway, it's you're just trying to actually make the competition fair, because judges do make mistakes, and we've seen some competitions like Madrid where the judges were very inexperienced, so there was like a huge number of appeals that went in, but all of them got passed because actually it was just bad judging. So generally that's the position that our coaches are coming from. But of course, when you're in like a finals position or podium and or semi-finals, and you're trying to get your athlete through to the finals, and you see something that's like, oh, that could definitely be taken away from them, I'm not sure that's 100%, like, yeah, I'll get a bit competitive then and be like, oh, I'm going to go and get this one in.
And you also mentioned that you were like quite a young coach, I guess, when you first started. Like, how old were you at the time?
Oh my god. Well, for seniors anyway, I was 24, I think.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's like
24.
the same age as a lot of the competitors.
So I was younger than, I think, all of the athletes on the team bar 2 at the first competition that I went to. I think there was like, was there 10 athletes? There was maybe 10 athletes, and only 2 of them were younger than me. So that was,
that's super
or
weird.
maybe 3 of them, but it was very small amount. There was a huge amount that were older than me, and most of them I'd competed with when I was younger, and they'd been more successful than me because they'd made it to seniors and World Cups, and I'd dropped out. So it was an interesting dynamic to sort of manage initially.
I guess, like, how do you command respect as a coach when you're coaching people who are like older than you or had like better results than you?
I guess I was not in any way striving for respect. I was kind of just, I knew that I was never going to be able to come in and be this coach where I was like, I know more than you have to listen to me because I've done this for however many years. I didn't have that. And I didn't really want to take that angle anyway, because I wasn't totally sure what I knew at that point. I had coached a few athletes to a pretty high level of youth, but I'd never coached an athlete to senior, so I was never going to come in and assume that I knew how to make a World Cup successful athlete at that point. And my main aim was just to provide the support at the competitions that like their coaches couldn't provide, because it's very rare that private coaches can go out to all of the World Cups and attend all of those. So in my head, I was just being a team coach and supporting, and that was slightly different. We did some like debriefs at the end of it where I would sort of say like, hey, I spotted this when you were climbing, you might want to try and do this next time. What do you think about that? And if they were like, no, I'd be like, yeah, you're probably right. Okay, great. Like I'll stop. But that was like the absolute extent of the coaching that I was doing for those athletes at the time. It was only later on that I started actually coaching senior athletes and actually moved into that space. And now I would kind of feedback a bit more. But even then, I don't think I like command respect from anybody. I think I want them to respect my knowledge and understanding. But if somebody doesn't want my opinion, I'm never going to force it on them, because I don't 100% know that I'm right. I don't think anybody does know 100% that they're right. So it's kind of just, here's some ideas I've had. If you're interested in them, go away and explore them. And if you want some stuff that I might think will help, then come back to me. And if not, then carry on.
I didn't mean to say like command respect as in like you were trying to, I don't know, be like an authoritarian figure. But I guess I would think that like having a coach and being a coach, they would need to like trust you in some way to be able to help them improve. Otherwise, it just like doesn't really work in that way.
Yeah, I mean, people like thinking that I knew what I was doing was a challenge, or at least it still feels like a challenge. I think even now, like, I've coached Erin to a pretty high level, and I don't have a queue of other athletes at the door that are like, oh, I have to work with you because you coach so well. And I definitely have got like male colleagues that have done like either the same amount or a little bit less, or maybe they've done a little bit more, but then they have like this queue of people that are like, oh, I have to work with you, I have to work with you. And there's of course reasons for that, of like maybe they've got better knowledge, or like S&C training is other things that factor into it, and I can definitely rationalize those. But it's hard not sometimes to think like it's because I'm younger or female that actually people just don't think I know things. And still, when I talk to some people, they're like, all right, okay, yeah, sure, like when I say stuff to them, whereas others are like take it on board fully. So it's hard to it was hard to make that transition into the place that I am now, where I can give feedback and people don't just roll their eyes or don't think anything of it, or maybe that was internal for me that was happening, but it's still like an ongoing struggle. And I think unless I was distinctly working with a group of athletes that were all improving all the time and I had all the time to give to them, I don't think I'll ever get to the point of people would just be like, yeah, she's a coach that can coach everyone. I think people still have this thing of like, oh, it's worked well one time, but maybe that's just with that athlete, but this could all be my insecurities in my head.
Is that like something that you would want to prove? Like you would want to coach more individual athletes and show that it's something you can do?
There was definitely a point where I wanted that. I think before I started working with Erin, or maybe even like while I was working with Erin a year ago, there was a point of, oh, I want to show people that I actually know what I'm talking about. Like I'm understanding everything. I'm not just hanging out with her on sessions. Like I am coaching. I am like delivering part of the training plan. I'm feeding back on the training plan. I'm looking at the S&C. I'm like inputting on the nutrition. I'm managing everything together. Like I wanted people to know that because I wanted to be like respected as one of the top coaches in the world, because that's kind of like theoretically where I am with the results that I've got from the athletes. But as the time's gone on, I've kind of got more comfortable with actually who am I proving that to? What am I going to gain from it? What's the point? Like, as long as I know that I'm doing the best that I can do and I believe in what I'm delivering for the athletes that I can, I'm not going to chase after other athletes. I'm going to make myself accessible to all of them. And if more people want to work with me, that's great. It would definitely fill me with a bit more confidence that people wanted that. But if I am going to spend all my time chasing that and trying to prove myself, then I'm not actually going to be focusing on the right things. So I've tried to like take a step away from that. But there's definitely still times where I'm like, oh, why does nobody want to work with me?
Do you feel like at least like other coaches have that respect for you?
Yeah, I mean, like my colleagues are really good at, we've been through like tough times in the history of like the GB team and like different management, and like we've like had it where everybody kind of was out to get us at times. So we've all been really good at like building each other up and trying to have each other's backs. And like me and my colleague will always sort of say like, hey, you did that when there's a good result that happens. So like, isn't it amazing that like we've achieved this? Like, this is great. And other people don't always see that. They think that we're just like negative and like sarcastic all the time, because externally we are, but we do have our moments where we'll turn around and be like, hey, like, good work. Very few people in the world have achieved this. Like, this is great. And we kind of like big each other up. So definitely other people have respect, but it's like, how far does that go?
What are some of the difficulties you feel like you faced as a female coach?
I mean, it comes back to that sort of respect thing, or people thinking that I'm as good a coach as my male colleague. Like, I've had several interactions where people have kind of looked me up and down and sort of gone, who are you and what are you doing in this space? And whether that's like an age thing or whether it was being a female, I always feels like I've kind of been brushed off as not being that involved. And again, there's other factors into people building their opinion, but I heard recently to be part of like this conference thing, somebody questioned the fact that there was all male coaches going to it, and the response that they got is there's no female coaches functioning at the level, which for me was like, well, it's not just me that's coaching at the elite level in climbing. There's like a lot of us. There's a lot of nations that are led by impressive female coaches that have been leading them for a long time. So why does somebody think that these men are the only ones that are leading it? Like, those men are great coaches. They are definitely doing impressive things. They definitely have a lot to say. But there is also women that are out there, and it should really be representative, because it's not just the men in the pit or behind the wall. But people still seem to think that it is, and I don't know how you change that perspective. And now I'm going to it because one of the male coaches was having a baby, so that's great for him, but he had to pull out last minute. So now I'm going to speak at that, but initially was not counted as one of being the good coaches at the time. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because there's also like Katarina on the Austrian team.
Yeah, Kata. But there's so many other female coaches. I mean, for us in the UK, the majority of our department is female. So I have a female head of performance. There's me as a female podium coach. There's a female academy coach, and she's the only academy coach. In the youth space, it's the youth team is run by women. The talent team is run by women. Like, we have a lot in our in our country, so we're quite lucky in that sense. But there are multiple other teams. French team have them, Belgian, Austrian, Germans. Lots of other teams work with women, so I don't know why they thought that there was no women coaching at the level.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's, like, been harder for women to get into coaching, or maybe, like, it's not something that they're as interested in pursuing?
There's definitely like a gap in, I think, in all sports, not just in climbing, for female coaches. It is harder to get in because there's always going to be this argument of like men just want to work with men, they work better with them, in the same way that maybe female athletes would work better with women. There's always that argument, and if you're working towards a higher level, then the general idea is that the men are better at delivering at that level. They have a better understanding. And I think climbing is a bit different because to understand how hard somebody else climbs just by looking at them, that you don't need to be able to climb a certain grade to do that. But I think historically that's kind of how it worked. Like it was historically ex-athletes that were coming in to be the coaches and to teach other people. And it's only in more recent years where it's less ex-athletes coming through. And like even I'm counted in that, but there are definitely coaches out there that were never an athlete. They've just come in as a coach. But yeah, I think in all sports you have that issue. And it tends to be that the women won't get up to like academy, like transition spaces. So the youth to senior space, that's where they'll be placed, because actually like women tend to be better at coaching those age groups because there's like puberty, emotions, like hormones everywhere, and women tend to be a bit more empathetic, so they thrive better in that space. But that then means that they're not pushed up into the senior space very often, and that's where all the men go because that's where they work better. So it's kind of hard to fight it, but there's definitely like imbalances still.
Yeah, I guess kind of keeping that in mind, one of the questions that came in from with Flow in mind was, what advice would you give to aspiring female coaches? And I'm thinking just about people who are interested in becoming coaches in general, especially in like the competition space.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that always stuck with me in terms of like being women come into this space is that sort of statistic about the fact that women won't go for jobs unless they have all of the requirements, and men will go for a job where they have 50%. And just having that in the back of your mind, if you don't think that you are qualified enough or that you have enough experience, go for it anyway and let somebody else decide. Like put yourself out there and give it a go. And if somebody says that you're not good at it, then go and work hard and get better at it. Don't just avoid it because you don't think you're capable of it. I speak to so many female coaches that some of them have even said that they're going to walk away from their athletes because they don't think that they have what it takes to support them. How do you know until you try? Like you can work with other people. I would almost say like encourage them to work with other people. I've worked with other coaches for a lot of my career, and that's helped me to develop and just sense check my work. But I've always had the understanding to get there, because otherwise they would just be like dragging me along, and that's not the case. So try and like quieten the voices that say you don't have enough experience or enough knowledge. Put yourself out there anyway. Ask other people to support you in it, but you probably have the capabilities. You just need to give it a shot.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess that also kind of tracks with how you grew as a coach. Like you kind of filled a different role. Like when you were younger and you were coaching, you felt like you supported your athletes in a different way than the other coaches did.
Yeah, it was always very relaxed. I never did. I don't know if it's actually really that different to what I do now. I never did the full like just delivering the training plan, like quite harsh, get it done. I don't think that's the nature of climbing anyway, but I think leaning into my style is what helped me to develop and grow, because just almost naturally I've developed all the like knowledge. I've kind of absorbed it by going on different courses and shadowing different people and working with different coaches. I've learned from all of their knowledge and brought that into my own. And if I'd gone straight in trying to do what I thought was the right way to do it, it wouldn't have worked out. Whereas it's gone much better just kind of doing it my way, figuring it out and adapting as I go. And it's worked better for some of the athletes as well. So you never know what's going to be right until it's already right.
Yeah, and I think now might be a good time to get into, I guess, like what coaching actually looks like. I think for a lot of people, it just kind of seems like, oh, you write a training plan, maybe you like give some feedback on what they're doing on the wall. But then you had mentioned like with coaching Erin, you also do like nutrition plans and like emotional support and things like that. So what else all goes into it?
Yeah, I mean, when you have athletes like Erin that are as advanced as they are in that sense. Like they're full-time training 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. There's a lot more time to provide all of this extra support. So yes, there's the aspect of we're just going to the wall. Maybe I'm beeling, maybe I'm setting some boulders. Maybe I'm just there reminding her that she's actually capable of climbing when she falls off those boulders and thinks that she's rubbish. Like there's that sort of psychological support there. But I would say that my role, at least in that setup, is sort of oversight of everything. So I'm technically her team lead and she has a team of coaches.
Pardon this brief interruption, but if you're interested in ad-free episodes and would like to unlock over 4 hours of deleted scenes, including one where Rachel talks about dealing with hate towards the GB coaches and where she reveals her favorite World Cup venue location, do consider helping support this podcast on Patreon. Some other perks include a membership pin shipped to you after 2 months, prioritized guest questions, or the ability to submit video questions, and more to come. The proceeds go back into the podcast, help me break even, and they help me improve the experience of the guests. If you'd like to help out non-monetarily, liking, commenting, and sharing helps a great deal as well. Back to the show.
So for her, coaching looks like a variety of different experts all leaning into their own areas. So we have a nutritionist whose only job is nutrition. She's very good at what she does. She provides a nutrition plan, and then I just kind of check in and go, hey, have you had that snack? Hey, have you done this? Hey, have you drank that water? And if it's too much for like Erin to do, then we go, right, okay, well, we need to feed this back and we need to say that that part of the plan's not working. We need to adapt it. And I try to get Erin to do it as much as possible, but it's quite stressful being an athlete. There's quite a lot going on. So sometimes I'll just be like, don't worry, I'll send the message. I'll sort it out for you. We'll get this changed. And we have like physio that ideally she doesn't need to see that often, but obviously it's there. Sports masseuse for like maintenance. There's S&C coach. Wow. There's her training plan coach. And then she has like a mindset coach as well as like some psych support. So she has like a whole team, and as well as her family and her partner and everybody that she's got around her, like externally as wider support. She's got like a whole team of different people that we all focus on the bits that we're best at. And there's obviously overlapping communication between everybody to kind of check in and go, does the S&C line up with the training, line up with the nutrition, line up with the resting? Like, is the massage at the right time? Is she like in a good place psychologically? Like, there's all of these considerations all the time, which she has to deal with. But ideally, we're trying to like preempt and make sure that it's as easy for her as possible. She just has to show up and climb and leave. But yeah, I kind of oversee everything. I would say chat to her the most, feedback to everybody else, arrange team meetings to check in. So it's a bit more like managery than coach at times.
Geez, I did not realize that there was this whole team like going into this. That's kind of crazy, and I really wish that I had that.
Yeah, I mean it's grown a lot. So like even this time last year, we had 2 or 3 less people. I think there was initially it was just Erin, her training plan coach that did her robot plan, which was Lattice, and then I did some one-to-ones, and then after like 2023, she had a really tough season. She felt really tired. She wasn't happy with things. We kind of completely mixed it up and did something new by, at the time, just bringing in an S&C coach and bringing in me more regularly. And then that grew into, okay, we'll bring a nutritionist in, we'll bring a psych in, okay, we'll bring physio in. And then it's just kind of like grown and grown. And it's just you don't want to miss anything. You don't want to like risk not trying to do something, and all of them factor in together. Like if you train too hard and you don't feel enough, then you're going to get injured. If you train too hard and you don't get the recovery massage, you're going to get injured. If you don't train hard enough because S&C is not there to do these extra little bits that you could do when your skin's too thin, then you're not going to be as strong as possible. So it's trying to like consider every possibility and make sure that we address it.
Do you still do like the one-on-ones?
Yeah, so I see Erin like sometimes like 3 times a week. It's kind of the same offer. That's like my GB role. So like any athlete that's on the program and is like one of the funded athletes, then they can technically like come to us and get as much coaching time as we can fit in a week. So it's generally like 3 days. But I was in Innsbruck with her for 10 days at the start of the year, and then we have like a training camp with a bunch of the athletes coming at the end of January. So there's quite a lot of contact time because like when we're in comp season, I obviously see them every day, and there's a lot of feedback loop there. But yeah, generally with Erin, it's like 3 days a week at least.
Yeah, what do the one-on-one sessions kind of look like? Not necessarily just for Erin, but for like anyone else on the GB team.
I mean, it kind of varies depending on what they're doing. So sometimes it's just pointing circuits and kind of like cheering them on to try harder, telling them to rest, that sort of thing. Sometimes it's like making up cool boulders and like funky moves to try and challenge them if we've not got the setting in the wall. Sometimes it's like facilitating a comp sim for them or like doing feedback on a preset boulder sort of thing. And I guess like some days are just belaying nonstop, just
Oh,
constantly
jeez.
at the end of a rope, like, okay, this one next, okay, this one next, okay, this one next. And those ones are maybe the more tiring ones, but necessary, obviously.
Interesting to know. Yeah, I guess in general, in terms of like Team GB training, what are your thoughts for like split of strength training versus on the wall training versus board climbing or whatever other training methods there are out there?
I guess it's so different for everybody, but generally I think the most important thing is kind of keeping track of what they need. Like if somebody's naturally quite strong, probably less strength training. Either make it your super strength and lean into it, do the board sessions, whatever, or focus on the technical stuff and drop it back a bit. But then it can be like a huge psychological impact on that. So if somebody mentally struggles with all the technical stuff, the failing of going and doing the technical side of things, then they probably need a board session to go and feel good. Or they probably need to get in the gym and just straightforward pick up some weights. You can't get it wrong. You can either pick them up or you can't pick them up. It's nice and simple. So you might need to do that. Equally, you might have an athlete that's really technically talented and you want to get them stronger. Trying to get the balance of them getting stronger without losing the natural talent and technique is quite hard. So you probably have to make sure that there's like at least 1 or 2 sessions, probably like 3 or 4 sessions a week that at least start with a fully technical execution thing, then playing around, really free flow, like just having a go at some moves and seeing what they can do. And then only the rest of the time, like maybe the other 2 or 3 sessions, maybe like mixing it into, got a bit of both. Ideally, you want to be hammering that sort of like physical side of things. And it obviously changes as you go through the year as well. There's so many considerations like at the start of off season. So like November, December, January, you might want to do a huge gym block and just get bulky, get strong, get that like base muscle there so that you can then transfer it by getting onto the wall and doing the really focused stuff later, because it's so much easier and simpler. You can less likely to get injured. You can really build a base in all these areas and then you can transform it. But some people really, they don't like that. They don't respond to that. It stresses them out. So it's hard because you have to like adapt it to every athlete, and some rules stick of like, obviously don't do too much, but some of them you have to like really adapt to with where they're at.
Would you say that it's better to kind of like lean into a strength, or for comps, is it better to try to be like an all-rounder?
I mean, if you're being objective of a competition athlete, you should probably be an all-rounder. Like you can probably get through rounds having strengths, but if you want to win, if you want to get a medal, you need to be prepared for whatever is going to be on the wall. And some people's strengths, like you see some French athletes who are amazing at coordination, and then you get some competitions where like it's really coordination heavy, it fares really well for them. They're also pretty strong as well. They're also really good at slabs. But they'll have some comps where it is like slightly easier for them because it's their style, whereas you might have some comps that are really physical or like really grovelly. And if you're only good at coordination, then you're not going to get anywhere in that comp. So it's kind of what are you aiming for? You're aiming for one-off performance where you might have your day and it's your boulders and it goes well. Okay, great. Probably lean into your strengths then. But if you want to be a successful comp athlete over a long period of time, you need to be good at every style, basically.
Yeah, when I think to like Erin, it's like hard for me to put a finger on like what her strengths and weaknesses would be. It's like kind of just an all-rounder.
Yeah, I mean, she's pretty good at doing everything. She definitely has weaknesses because we definitely have stuff that we work on, but people get really confused by her. Like people have said that she's not very technical. She's not good in the slab, but then her stats from the season actually have really high slab performances. And it's really niche. She's actually just really bad at like no thumbs squeezing.
Oh, okay.
Like if it's so wide that basically world champs qualifier exposed her massively. She like qualified really low because the third boulder was this straightforward like flat squeeze boulder, and that's somehow still a weakness. We work on it every year, but I think she just like struggles on it. But that's really quite rare, so it doesn't come up that much. So it's generally it's hard because you have to like push up the whole level. You can't just like, okay, you're really strong, so we need to get your slabs up. It's like, okay, everything's pretty good, but if you want to like keep winning, then we need to like push up everything. So
Yeah.
it's hard to get it all up there and be like, okay, there's one weakness that comes up every 3 comps or even every 6 comps. We've got to make sure that this is coming up as well.
Yeah, that's super specific. I mean, did you just like set a bunch of boulders with like no thumb squeezing?
I mean, we tried. We don't really have much like free reign on setting in the UK. We kind of have to work in
Okay, yeah.
commercial gyms quite a lot. So it's a lot of work on spray walls. And I kind of went to her S&C coach and was like, what do you think we could do with this? And they were a bit like, there's not really exercises that train that. And I was like, yeah, but can we come up with some? And now she has these like bizarre exercises. Even when she's doing them, she's like, I'm not really sure what this is for. But then afterwards, she's fully like, oh yeah, no, all of the muscles that hurt from compression are hurting right now. So I'm kind of like, well done, Tom. Like, you've done a good job.
Right. Good to hear. Do you think there's anything that's like the most underrated training technique for climbing?
It's so hard because like every nation does it differently. And I think like a general rule is just go and do more boulders or more routes. Like more time on task is always going to do better. But I guess like the quality of the time is key as well. I think board climbing really benefits us a lot. Like the fact that our guys can get on a woody board and just go and grind out and like do their strength training and get that done. And they're pretty open to S&C as well. So like that base building stuff, like we're a pretty strong nation now, in that sense, like physically. So I think that's one thing that helps us. But equally, like some of our guys fingerboard, some of them don't. It's hard to tell if that helps. Like some of them spend more time on set boulders than they do on spray wall, and that benefits them. So I think until we're like much further on as a whole sport with a lot more like studies behind things, it's so hard to say like, yeah, this thing will make you really, really good, because each athlete is like totally different. Like some of them can do one armors, some of them can have a one arm edge, like some of them can't do it at all, and yet they're still out there crushing it. So
yeah, I guess that's true. Is there anything that you feel like is an overrated training technique then?
ooh, I mean, if it makes the athlete feel good, then it can't be overrated. If an athlete's doing something and a coach turns around and says, that's not giving you anything, but the athlete believes that it's doing something, then it's probably doing something. It maybe could be slightly better time-wise. It could be better to use the time, but there's always that thing of like placebo effects of as long as there's belief in the program and you're seeing some improvements, then it's got to be doing something. If you're hammering an exercise for 6 weeks and nothing's getting better, then you should probably change it. But I don't think there's anything, like nothing stands out. Like maybe old-fashioned campus boarding, that's maybe not as useful. There was a drip. Sorry.
That's overrated?
No. I think it's more like, what does it bring at this point for comp climbing? If you can get on a spray wall on campus, then better grip type, better movement, like you're getting a full range is more appropriate than doing straightforward campus boarding. But if you want to just improve like fire in a range that's like that set, then it's useful. So it's what does that individual need to work on? And I don't think anything would be potentially like too overhyped. There's always going to be like hype exercises. There was like the cuffs that like cut off blood circulation.
Oh,
They were like hype for a bit, but
yeah.
there's always going to be little things like that. But I actually don't think that many of the athletes at our level or the coaches at our level are actually like getting too caught up in them. But I'm sure other people would think of things.
Are people using the blood circulation cuffs for climbing?
There was a stage at least in Sheffield when I think I first moved down here. It was maybe like in 2018 or 2019, where I went into the wall and there was like 3 people that were doing like pickups, and they were doing like 7 on 3 off pickups with the cuffs, and they were like, I swear by it, it's incredible. My recovery, my capacity has gone up so much. Or it was probably just the fact that they were doing 7 on 3 off for the first time in ages, but they were like swearing by it. And I'm sure there was like studies that didn't back it up, but that was like a hype phase for sure.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. I'm also thinking about the old-fashioned campus boarding. I feel like I do a lot of that, so maybe I need to switch that up.
I mean, it's great for power. If you can like actually go in campus boulders, then it's like the first stepping stone to going campusing boulders. But then if you want to do wider moves or vary the hold type, then you could just get on boulders. But then it's so hard because like how many walls actually have the perfect angled campus on that also have appropriate boulders set on it. Like it's a tool for making the most of a situation. It's not a tool that you should spend all your time on. That's the main thing.
Well, I also like just kind of feel like a douche if I go into the gym and like campus boulders.
There's also that you could go in campus like a project that someone's on and then they'll never and like is how your ego will cope with that situation.
Yeah, but spray wall makes sense. What are your own climbing goals?
So I've bouldered 8A before and loosely have that goal again. I would like to at least get close to that. I feel like I'm close every year, but I am slowly coming around to the fact that my training is super inconsistent mid-season. The last 2 years I've had finger injuries either just before the season or just after the season because of the inconsistency. And I can still fairly regularly boulder 7C, 70 plus. So like my main aim right now is just maintaining that, but like maybe a little bit of me is pushing to try and find an 8A that I can like have a good go at, something that's at least close to try and train for. But I think I have to like reality check myself and like, okay, well, I don't really have time to train. Am I going to be disappointed if I keep pushing for this and it's never going to be a reality? So it's kind of maintaining. I've actually just like got into running as something that's not climbing that I can do when I'm at the comps and try and push on that instead.
Do you have any interest in like the dynamic indoor style of setting these days, or is that not for you?
I actually like I really enjoy them. I sucked at them when I was competing and I still so very much suck at them now. But when they have like the nice easy versions that they set for the customers, I love those. They're my favorite. Because it's always like I find it really interesting, those movements, like biomechanics, the way that the like physics of the movements work, the way that you generate all of that stuff I find really interesting to coach. And it's one of the things that I kind of lean into. So I always find it interesting when I look at a boulder and I'm like, cool, I understand what I need to do on this. And then my body just completely fails to do it. And I have to go, right, let me just take a step back and like build up to it. But it always just feels so satisfying when you do like a cool coordination move. People that say they don't like them just aren't very good at them and are too scared to try them. And I definitely sometimes are too scared to try them. But when I get on a good one and I manage to do like the easy ones, I'm like, yeah, sick, that looked cool.
Do you feel like you have a better understanding of how to do that kind of movement compared to your athletes? Or do you think that the athletes would have a better understanding of it compared to you?
I would say that they have a better understanding, but I also think that my understanding is quite high. We've had this debate actually. I pissed a lot of people off in a warm-up because it was like this theory of like, if you were to put my brain into an athlete's body,
Right. Yeah.
would I be able to do the moves and do the boulders? And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I think. Because like, I'm not just like looking at people doing the moves. Like I said, I am trying to do these moves and it would take me longer, but I would be, in theory, be able to use their muscles and understandings and stuff that way. And it pisses people off. And still sometimes I'm like, was that right? Was that not right? But I kind of stuck by it. Like, no, I've been doing this for a long time. Like I've watched a lot of World Cups. I've been on the mats and I've not just seen that one athlete do the movement. I've seen all of the athletes and the first 20 people come and do this movement. So like I understand the differences and like I have to be able to teach those athletes how to do those things. So I have to have some sort of understanding, but I don't think that I have more than them because definitely they rock up and sometimes just do it and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't think you would do it that way. So
True.
Yeah, there's got to be something that they've got over me. Otherwise, surely if I just trained hard enough, I'd be on the mats too.
Yeah, I think seeing like a bunch of people on the mats do it a bunch of different ways and then seeing what actually ended up working, that probably helps a bunch. So in terms of, I guess, like what's next for you? I mean, you're still a super young coach. You've already coached at the Olympics. Like, what do you imagine would even be next? Like, is there any higher achievement than that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could just go like, oh, sweet, I've done it. Ticked it. I've coached an athlete to a gold medal, won the overall, coached at the Olympics. But I think the way that I've done those things, like, could always have been better. So my aim is to sort of continually develop what I do. So I want to go to the Olympics and be like a head coach eventually. I want to see how many Olympics I can get to because I always find it really cool when I speak to like other coaches in the UK and they're like, yeah, I've done 10 games. And I'm just like, oh,
Wow,
that's
true.
so many. I'm not sure I want to do that many, but I would like to do more than just the one, especially because like the one for me, I was like the last coach to go in. I was kind of like, it was like 4 weeks, 5 weeks before that I got told. It was
wow.
whirlwind, and it was cool that I was there, but there was just like a kind of bitter taste to it of like, oh, well, I wasn't the first pick or whatever. So I'd like to be just one of the Olympic coaches that's going out and that's what you do, and have supported the athletes to that point and not just kind of like swooping in, maybe like not having supported them as much as I could have, even though I feel like I supported a lot of the last guys a lot. But yeah, I'd just like to do it again and like do it really well, and eventually like be a head coach for GB, and kind of like I'm okay not doing the hands-on coaching stuff that much. I'm definitely better at like leadership and management and admin. I can do all of the admin stuff, which some other people don't want to do. They just want to do the hands-on coaching stuff. So like maybe it'd be better if I moved into that side of things, to let the people that really want to do the hands-on coaching and nothing else just do that, and I can go and do the other bits, because I find that like equally rewarding. But I just want to coach for a good amount of time and like be happy with how I've coached as well. There's definitely been bits which I could have done better over the last few years, so I'd like to get to the point where there's less things I could have done better. There's always going to be something, but trying to do it as well as possible.
Yeah, does GB have like a head coach right now, or because like after Tom left?
Yeah, so we basically had all the financial struggles. So we have a head of performance right now, and then we have myself and Liam that are the podium coaches, and we don't have enough money to have a head coach.
That kind of moves into one of the audience questions, which I guess I'll just ask that one now. So one of the audience questions was, why is GB climbing funding so bad? Is it getting any better? I believe at some point the coaches had to either self-fund or be funded by athletes, or couldn't go to comps. So how was your experience with that?
We had, I think it was a bit of an accidental deficit in the last cycle. There was basically just an overspend. There was some messes made in the budget that meant that we spent more money than we had, which is why at the end of the Olympic year, the coaches had to be paid for by the athletes, because we didn't have any money to send them to the competitions, but we still very much wanted to support the athletes. So it was offered to them, if you want GB coaches to go, we have the time, we'll go, could you just contribute to it? And we did some crowdfunding, but we didn't like say that they had to pay for us to go. Like if they couldn't afford it, that was obviously fine. But it was just like a mistake. Basically, we don't know exactly what happened. I'm sure some people do know what happened, but we don't know what happened. And it was just like misbudgeted. Whereas now we, like at the start of this cycle, technically had less than the cycle before, or at least it seemed that way because we'd spent more money than we had. But now the athletes basically are to thank for this. They've done really, really well. And now UK Sport have recognised that we're actually quite a good sport. We've done a fairly good job to support athletes into medal winning performances, into transition to senior. Like they basically are looking at a team of successful athletes rather than like one or two. And thankfully all of our guys have done really, really well. They've like pulled out some amazing performances in the last like couple of years. So like I think it is getting better. I think we are getting a bit more like structured in it, I guess, or like stable in the financial side of things, because we should be able to equally support all the competitions and send coaches to it and not make the same mistakes again, hopefully. But it was basically, it was a mistake, and we are not making it again at all.
Okay. Yeah, let's do another audience question. So Team GB is super strong at the moment. How has that impacted competitiveness and camaraderie amongst the athletes?
I think our team's actually like, they're pretty good. They all get on for the most part. There's always going to be like personal relationships. People are going to get on better with other people, but actually like I think all of our guys are super supportive. I think there's like a lot of people pushing on each other. Like a lot of our guys especially are training together a lot of the time and like learning from each other, pushing each other, training together. And it's pretty consistent. Like it's a little bit different for some others because they live in different places, or especially like for Erin, for example, she's doing boulder and lead. There's very few athletes that are actually training lead at the like World Cup level in the UK and training boulder. So it's hard to align the schedules and like where they go and like train their lead or where they don't on certain days. So there's like challenges in that sense of they might not interact that much in the off season, but generally when they come together, like there's a pretty good team environment on the whole. But like I said, there's always going to be some people that don't get on.
I mean, is there any like more stress dealing with maybe like getting spots for World Cups or I guess like even thinking ahead to future Olympic spots?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I think, quite stressful for a lot of them, but we have like a pre-selection system, which for all of our guys that are like on program, if they achieved certain results last year, they basically get pre-selected for World Cup this year. So for those guys, they're kind of safe. They don't have to worry about it because we wanted them to be able to like train as hard as possible and not have to worry about it peaking because our comp's like now, but the first World Cup's in May or June. Like it just makes it a little bit easier because we're kind of stoppers when we can do those things. But that does leave, I think it's one Boulder World Cup space in the men's. I think it's really not that much. And then it's not a huge amount in the women's when it comes into World Cups because there's a lot of our guys like fighting for those spaces. And especially for lead, I think there's only like 3 or 4 that are like spaces for men and women. I can't remember off the top of my head, but those are a lot more competitive, and it's always tough for us. We've always had like a fairly competitive nation, but it's definitely got a lot more tense at British champs and stuff, which is why we've like moved towards a different like selection thing. So it's just nice and easy. You leave competition, you know that you're selected or you're not, but you have to be in, I think, like top 5 or top 3 a lot of the time. So it's quite tough.
Okay. So I guess at least for the people who are already in the World Cup circuit, they don't have to think about competing against each other in terms of like Team GB. It's more just like this is your overall performance that helps them get selected.
Yeah. And I think that helps as well with like the environment at the competitions. Because previously it was like if you weren't pre-selected, you had to show up at this competition where everybody's watching you, like you're the one to beat. It makes it really hard. Whereas now it's like, okay, well, they're literally not your competition. They are just there they still have to compete. But it's sort of like, I can't remember why exactly it is we have to compete. I think it's basically to demonstrate the standard and like give like stuff people to like aim for.
Yeah.
Because I guess if it was like none of them competed, the numbers would be a lot smaller. It'd be a lot harder to know the performance gap, I guess, between the guys that are just qualifying on their own and the ones that have already pre-qualified. So it's a good like training tool, I guess, but it also just like completely removes it. And it means that like people like Toby and Erin and Emma and Diane, like they're going and they're competing alongside people that probably idolize them quite a lot, and that's quite cool in itself as well.
Yeah.
Like Max Millen always going and trying to win British Boulder Champs is so cool every year, and like I think that he would choose to compete anyway, but it's great to have that sort of like national fight as well. Like the title is equally as important to them as like a World Cup title, maybe not equally, but like it's an important title to them.
Yeah.
So that's cool too, but it does obviously remove the stress of everybody else doesn't have to see them as competition in the sense of selection. It's just for the actual competition.
Okay. What are some of the ways you've coached the GB athletes on the mental side of competition?
Yeah, so I guess like on the whole as a team, we try to make sure that we set harder than the World Cups in the UK as much as possible, which is challenging because we don't get stuff set that hard. But when we're trying to do trainings and stuff, we'll always make sure that there's at least one day of a training where it's just brutal and people get shut down. Kind of as a psychological thing to, if they can do it there, then when they go to the World Cups, it's easy.
Interesting.
But also like removing the simulation aspect, because for some of them, they hate the simulation. Like they can't get in the right mindset for it. So it's just stressful. It's not helpful. So we're quite flexible with that. And that's mainly to athlete requests, but again, they're still going and trying hard boulders and doing harder moves. And even if they can't do them, they're learning a lot from that. So then when they go to a World Cup boulder and it's like, hopefully an easier version of that move, they just get it straight away.
Yeah, I haven't thought of that as like a mental training trick, I guess. Do you feel like you provide a lot of, I guess, like psychological coaching as well? Or is it more just like these little tricks that help them feel less stressed during comps?
I think with like people like Erin, I would say all of the stuff that I do has like a psychological aspect to it. I'm not doing like therapy sessions with her, but there's some like cognitive behavioral therapy techniques that I'll use to kind of help her process when stuff is challenging. And just the like changing perspectives on how they look at things and trying to, again, like provide that balanced perspective. So if they think that they've had a terrible performance, trying to provide a positive aspect to it so that they can see it in a balanced sense. And then equally when they've had a really good performance, letting them lean into that, but then coming back in to say like, cool, what can we continue to do to build on that anyway? Like it's always going to be some sort of balance in that sense. But it's always about how they're viewing it, because more often than not, they are just like fully negative on it. They're like, oh, I could have done that better. Even when they've done really well, I could have done that better. I could have done that. That was rubbish. That wasn't good. Beating themselves up a lot. So it's trying to like almost triage it in that sense of what do we need to focus on right now? How can we control this thing? Let's go and focus on those things that we can control, change them, and anything else we're going to have to accept it and put it to the side for now and try and approach it that way.
What about more specifically when it's like the expectations of being one of the higher performers and like maybe having to defend your title or like being the one that everyone else is trying to beat?
Yeah, I guess in those instances, I'm actually trying to help them see it from other people's perspective. So you kind of are the one to beat. You are the one to watch. People are waiting for you to fail because then it's their chance to step up.
Mm-hmm.
But you can view that in a way that's really negative and like people are out to get you. But realistically, like most people are thinking that way in some sense. It's not necessarily a malicious way. It's not like, oh, I hope they fall off. It's just, oh, maybe I have a chance to like step up, and it's trying to help them see it from like the empathetic side of view of how do you think that person is feeling if they're thinking that way and if they're acting that way and talking that way. Do you think that's coming from a place of like confidence, or do you think that they're actually experiencing some insecurities as well? They're worried about how they're performing. They think the only way that they can perform and can win is if you mess up. Isn't that like a shame that that's how they think? Like, wouldn't it be nicer if they could just go like, okay, I'm going to perform my best and get the results that I want? But like, it's hard, isn't it? So it's trying to like help them see from other sides, so it's not just this negative thing. Because it is quite vulnerable, quite isolating when you are on your own. Like I've seen it quite a lot where people, if Erin doesn't do something, somebody else will be like, oh my god, Erin didn't do that move and I did. And that can be really negative of like, oh my god, she's rubbish. But actually I use an example of like me and her both tried the same route in Innsbruck and I do not route climb. But it made me feel really good when she struggled on a move that I'd struggled on. Not because I was like, ha, she's failed, but because it meant that I wasn't as rubbish as I thought I was. Because when I'd done that move, I was like, oh my god, this is so hard. I suck so much. But actually seeing her struggle, I was like, oh, it's a hard move. Great. Like, I just was trying hard, so that's fine.
Yeah.
It's really easy to just see it as like, oh, good, she fails. And actually, like, there's this whole other processes going on internally that we don't vocalize or hear from anybody else.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. How do you think new comps like PCL will impact the scene for both athletes and coaches?
I mean, it's exciting. It's new ways to get out there. I think there's still a huge gap between like the prize money that you get at a World Cup, the publicity that you get at a World Cup, all of that stuff, and then the break in the off season of what have you got to go for. Like, especially in the UK, we have a few small competitions with small prize monies, which I guess seem big in terms of that FSC prize money actually. But yeah, it's hard to make money as an athlete unless you are winning in the top 8 consistently at a World Cup, and very few people are consistently in the top 8. So it's a good way for other people to make a career out of this, to put themselves out there and like get some more practice in the meantime. And it seems like a cool different format. I don't actually know that much about it, but it seems like a step towards like your Formula One in that sense of making it a big show, and it's traveling and more people are invested in it. So it's always going to be better for the athletes to get out there with, I guess, other brands as well.
Do you think the timing of the comps will make a big difference in terms of their training?
I mean, that's where we struggle as well, like nationally with our championships. So like our selections, like I was saying before, if you want to make it onto the first Boulder World Cup of the season, you have to compete in January to make it there. And that's just because as we get closer to like March and April, there's too many other competitions at Classroom, there's too many other weekends that are taken up. So this is the only weekend that we have available to do that. which means that if you have to do this competition to qualify, your first competition of the year is in January and your last competition of the year now is in October. So it's a huge season. There's like a bit of a training break in between, but you don't really have a break in that time because you don't want to lose too much. So you might have like a little bit of a break to recover, but then you have to train for another few weeks in between. And then maybe you get a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks off at the end of the year. But if you didn't perform well enough to be pre-selected, then you have to peak again in January. So it's always really challenging the way that the year is structured.
Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare, actually, for the athletes. Okay, last one from the audience. We'll do tips for improvement as a coach, specifically as a competition coach from someone who is new to coaching.
Go to competitions. Like, it sounds really straightforward, but I think I did a lot of like volunteering time. I did a lot of time judging, like being a runner at a competition, also being a coach at a competition, just going with the athletes. And the more understanding that you can get of the tactics of the competition, how it works, what things might come up, the better you can prepare your athletes. So like if you're just preparing your athletes for the best situations, they're never going to do that well. So having the experience of this could go wrong in a competition, like the judges could do this could happen, and you prepare your athletes for those scenarios. You use them to like make training harder to develop their skills anyway, but then actually they get there and they're prepared for that, then that's only going to be better. And you can only learn that by going to the comps yourself. Like you can speak to other people and other people can tell you, but I don't think that it is the same as having to like fight that fire firsthand. So try and just go to them locally, like nationally, internationally if you can, but you can, the more that you build up, the more likely you are to move up through it anyway.
Interesting. Did you do like that volunteering of like doing running and judging and stuff while you were a coach, or was that before you became a coach?
I think I did both. Like I think obviously when I was younger, I remember there was a World Cup or European Champs or something that was happening at Rattle, which was my local wall when I was a kid. And I volunteered as a runner then when I was like 15. But then as I was older, like my parents were really good at giving back to like the community. Like my mum ran, I can't remember what her role was in the Scottish climbing, but she was in charge of something in Scottish climbing. Like she was judging at every competition and still goes and judges at some competitions now. My dad was like the photographer and he did some judging as well. So I was kind of brought up to give back in that sense. So I just automatically went and volunteered when there's opportunities. I volunteered to judge at like YCS's, which is local youth competitions that happened like across the whole of the UK. But there was like regional rounds I would volunteer at. And then if the finals was close enough to me, I would like volunteer at that as well. So I've always, and I was coaching then for sure, because I remember being old enough that I had athletes competing and I had to say, oh, I can't judge their category. It's not fair. Give me a different category. So yeah, whole mix through.
Cool. Okay. Well, I think that wraps up the questions I had for today then. Thank you for joining. Is there anything like any other words of wisdom that you want to get out there?
Don't get a sausage dog because they're like barky and need to be in your lap the whole time.
Yeah.
Teaching, but yeah, no, I can't think of anything else.
Do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, you can just get me on Instagram at Rachel Karma with a K. And then I don't really, well, I have a YouTube, but that's for climbing boulders, and I can't remember what that is, but if you search Rachel Carr climbing, I think I come up, and I post a bunch of different boulders in Font, the UK, anywhere else I go climbing, just for female beta, shorter beta.
Oh, that'll be good to see. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you again, and it was amazing to chat.
No problem.
Thank you so much for making it to the end of the podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Otherwise, you are a super fake climber. If you're listening on a podcasting platform, I'd appreciate if you rate it 5 stars, and you can continue the discussion on the free competition climbing Discord linked in the description. Thanks again for listening.